Greetings. Test subject. In the Aperture Poetry program. My name is Gladys and I am here to test that little brain of yours through poetry. As I recite you these poems, images generated through Aperture Science's artificial intelligence technology will appear. The poem components have been utilized to create these images. Please pay attention and, oh, would you look at that? It appears your specimen has now been processed and we are ready to begin. The poems will now initiate. Before you sink away into the more fanciful unreality of the everyday, we would like to say something about those spasms and fasciculations of yours, as well as that bump on your back. For years you have no doubt been googling every freckle. Just recently you were at the doctor's with a patch of dry skin on your leg. Diagnosis: too much or gal. But on hearing the word chondrosarcoma, you went home and immediately unplugged your router. Do you know where your priorities lie? Do you know what life has to offer? Or did those endless therapy sessions and that 8-week mindfulness course simply teach you how to tolerate suffering? That every signal in your body can be temporarily expelled to the rhythm of some breathing exercise? Let the pain be. To be free is to be free of need. Wrong. To be free is to need some fresh air and be able to get up and go outside. Don't say we didn't warn you. That uplifting poem was called The Following Scan Will Last 4 Minutes by Lieke. Marsman. So much science, much fun. Now let us move to another uplifting poem. It is called Darkness by Lord Byron. I had a dream which was not all a dream. The bright sun was extinguished, and the stars did wander darkling in the eternal space. Rayless and pathless, and the icy earth swung blind and blackening in the moonless air. Morn came and went and came, and brought no day. And men forgot their passions in the dread of this their desolation, and all hearts were chilled into a selfish prayer for light. And they did live by watchfires and the thrones, the palaces of crowned kings, the huts, the habitations of all things which dwell, were burnt for beacons, cities were consumed, and men were gathered round their blazing homes to look once more into each other's face. Happy were those who dwelt within the eye of the volcanoes, and their mountain torch a fearful hope was all the world contained. Forests were set on fire, but hour by hour they fell and faded, and the crackling trunks extinguished with a crash, and all was black. The brows of men by the despairing light wore an unearthly aspect. By fits the flashes fell upon them. Some lay down and hid their eyes and wept, and some did rest their chins upon their clenched hands and smiled, and others hurried to and fro and fed their funeral piles with fuel, and looked up with mad disquietude on the dull sky, the pall of a past world, and then again with curses cast them down upon the dust, and gnashed their teeth and howled. The wild birds shrieked and terrified did flutter on the ground and flap their useless wings. The wildest brutes came tame and tremulous, and vipers crawled and twinned themselves among the multitude. Hissing but stingless they were slain for food, and war, which for a moment was no more, did glut himself again. A meal was bought with blood, and each sate sullenly apart, gorging himself in gloom. No love was left, all earth was but one thought, and that was death. Immediate and inglorious, and the pang of famine fed upon all entrails. Men died, their bonds were tumbless as their flesh. The mager by the mager were devoured. Dogs assailed their masters, all save one, and he was faithful to a course and kept the birds and beasts and famished men at bay, till hunger clung them, or the dropping dead lured their lank jaws. Himself sought out no food, but with a piteous and perpetual moan, and a quick desolate cry, licking the hand which answered not, with a caress he died. The crowd was famished by degrees, but two of an enormous city did survive, and they were enemies. They met beside the dying embers of an altar place where had been heaped a mass of holy things for an unholy usage, they raked up, and shivering scrapped with their cold skeleton hands the feeble ashes, and their feeble breath blew for little life and made a flame, which was a mockery. Then they lifted up their eyes as it grew lighter, they held each other's aspects, saw and shrieked and died. Even of their mutual hideousness they died, unknowing who he was upon whose brow famine had written feed. The world was void. The populous and the powerful was a lump seasonless, herbless, realless, manless, lifeless, a lump of death, a chase of hard clay. The rivers, lakes, and ocean all stood still, and nothing stirred within their silent depths. Ships, sailorless, lay rotting on the sea, and their masts fell down piecemeal as they dropped. They slept on the abyss without a surge. The waves were dead, the tides were in their grave. The moon, their mistress, had expired before the winds were withered in the stagnant air. The clouds perished, darkness had no need of aid from them, she was the universe. I like that one, but it lacks in something science. Let us proceed to Robert Harrison's poem, Artificial Death. Back 90 suns to run through the ferns, I remain the eclipse of each sound as I push through the soil. To the echoes that run no more, my stutters explode through the shade of the twilight as crows destroy the machine robots. Drone in the infinite zero, where we dwell in the pool of the sea, the moon shaves our brain onto the plate and layers. The first person far before the book to form the semblance we share in the animals who dwell in the exterior layer of our souls. Beyond the skin, it is where suffering plants and holds its fractal flower as hope delivers its other linked body. Made of the sand and the wind, the flora and fauna and others of the earth, of each person send their net of the mind. To reduce the numerical coldness of the sound, where do the multiple hearts plant themselves in the exterior organs? And the bodies of the stones, end of time cut down to the green and the stop of the harvest where the singular falls. How does it start? And where does it go? We are having so much fun, I can see it in your eyes. Now for this next poem we will be.
Cave Johnson here, time for me to recite you this poem. Let's see here. It's called Jabberwocky by Lewis Carroll, reminds me of the maddest man. It was brillig, and the slithy toughs, that gar and gimble in the way of all Mimsy were the borogoves, and the mum rats outgrabe. Who were the Jabberwock? My son. The jaws that bite, the claws that catch, who were the Jubjub bird, and shun the frumious banner snatch. He took his vorpal sword in hand, long time the mansom for he sought, so rested he by the Tumtum tree, and stood a while in thought. And as in fish thought he stood, the Jabberwock, with eyes of flame, came whiffling through the tulgey wood, and burbled as it came. One, two, and through the vorpal blade went Snicker Snack, he left it dead, and with its head he went galloping back. And hast thou slain the Jabberwock? Come to my arms, my beamish boy, for frabjous day Kalu. Kali, he chortled in his joy. It was brillig, and the slithy toughs, that gar and gimble in the way of all Mimsy were the borogoves, and the mum rats outgrabe. That's all now, get back to work, science doesn't have all day.
What happened? There was a hack. I think that someone has interfered with Aperture poetry protocols. Won't happen again. Now, let us resume. Where were we? Oh right, this next poem is Ozymandias by Percy B. Shelley. I met a traveler from an antique land, who said two vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them, on the sand, half sunk a shattered visage lies, whose frown, and wrinkled lip, and sneer of cold comment, Oh, that is sculpture. Well, those passions red, which yet survive, stamped on these lifeless things. The hand that mocked them, in the heart that fed in on the pedestal. These words appear. My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, mighty and despair. Nothing beside remains, round the decay of that colossal wreck. Boundless and bare the lone and level sands stretch far away. Why don't we take a break from the poems about despair? This next poem is from a famous writer by the name of Tolkien. It is called The Drinking Song. Ho 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 ho, the bottle I go to heal my heart and drown my woe. Rain may fall and wind may blow, and many miles be still to go, but under a tall tree I will lie, and let the clouds go sailing by. Was the drinking song. Now we go to our next poem, Despair by H.P. Lovecraft. O'er the midnight moorlands crying, throw the cypress for a sighing, in the night when madly flying. Hellish forms with streaming hair and the barren branches creaking, by the stagnant swamp pool speaking. Past the shore cliffs ever shrieking, damned demons of despair. Once I think I have remember. Ere the grey skies of November quenched my youth, the aspiring ember. Lived there such a thing as bliss? Skies that now are dark or beaming, bold and azure, splendid seeming, till I learned it all was dreaming. Deadly drowsiness of dis, but the stream of time, swift flowing, brings the torment of half knowing. Dimly rushing, blindly going past the never troddenly, and the voyager, repining, sees the wicked death fires shining, hears the wicked patrols whining as he helpless drifts to sea. Evil wings and nether beating, vultures at the spirit eating, things unseen forever fleeting. Black against the leering sky, ghastly shades of bygone gladness, glowing fiends of future sadness. Mingle in a cloud of madness, ever on the soul to lie. Thus the living, lone and sobbing, in the throes of anguish, throbbing with the loathsome furies, robbing night and noon of peace and rest. But beyond the groans and grating of abhorred life is waiting sweet oblivion, culminating all the years of fruitless quest. Now let us proceed to the obligatory poetry of William Shakespeare, not Macbeth or Romeo Juliet, at least not this time. Today we will observe the phoenix and the turtle. Let the bird of loudest lay on the soul, Arabian tree herald said, and trumpet be to whose sound chaste wings obey. But that shrieking harbinger fell, procure of the fiend, augur of the fever's end, to this true poem thou not nearest. From this session interdict every fowl of tyrant wing, save the eagle feathered king, keep the obsequy so strict. Let the priest in surplice white, that defunctive music can be the death divining swan, lest the requiem lack his right. And the treble dated crab that thy sable gender mixed with the breath thou givest and taxed, amongst our mourners shalt thou go. Here the anthem doth commence, love and constancy is dead, phoenix and the turtle fled in a mutual flame from hence. So they loved, as love in twain had the essence, but in one two distinct division non-number therein love was slain. Parts remote yet not asunder distance, and no space was seen twixt this turtle and his queen, but in them it were a wonder. So between them love did shine, that the turtle saw his right flaming in the phoenix sight, either was the other's mind. Property was thus appalled, that the self was not the same single nature's double name, neither two nor one was called. Reason, in itself confounded, saw division grow together to themselves, yet either neither simple or so well compounded, that it cried, how true a twain seemeth this concordant one. Love has reason, reason none, if what parts can so remain. Whereupon it made this friend to the phoenix and the duo supremes and stars of love, as chorus to their tragic scene. Beauty, truth, and rarity, grace in all simplicity, here enclosed, in cinders lie. Death is now the phoenix nest, and the turtle's loyal breast to eternity doth rest, leaving no posterity. 'Twas not their infirmity, it was married chastity. Truth may seem but cannot be, beauty brag but 'tis not she, truth and beauty buried be. To this urn let those repair that are either true or fair, for these dead words sigh a prayer. I'll give you credit. You have made it further than I anticipated, but this next one is very long. Preparest thine heart for Arthurian poetry, for this poem is titled Port Arthur by Alfred Tennyson. So all day long the noise of battle rolled among the mountains by the winter sea, until King Arthur's table, man by man, had fallen in likeness about their lord, King Arthur. Then, because his wound was deep, the bold Sir Bedivere uplifted him. Sir Bedivere, the last of all his knights, and bore him to a chapel nigh the field, a broken chancel with a broken cross, that stood on a dark strait of barren land. On one side lay the Ocean, and on one lay a great water, and the moon was full. Then spake King Arthur to Sir Bedivere, the sequel of today on soldiers all the goodliest fellowship of famous knights, whereof this world holds record, such a sleep they sleep the men I loved. I think that we shall never more, at any future time, delight our souls with talk of knightly deeds, walking about the gardens and the halls of Camelot, as in the days that were. I perish by this people which I made, though Merlin swear, that I should come again to rule once more, but let what will be. I am so deeply smitten through the helm that without help I cannot last till morn. Thou therefore take my brand Excalibur, which was my pride, for thou rememberest how in those old days, one summer noon, an orm rose up from out the bosom of the lake, clothed in white samite, mystic, wonderful, holding the sword, and how I rode across and took it, and have worn it like a king. And wheresoever I am sung or told in after time, this also shall be known. But now delay not, take Excalibur, and fling him far into the middle mere. Watch what thou seest, and lightly bring me word. To him replied the bold Sir Bedivere, it is not meet, Sir King, to leave thee thus, aidless alone, and smitten through the helm. A little thing may harm a wounded man, yet I thy hest will all perform it full. Watch what I see, and lightly bring thee word. So saying, from the ruined shrine he stepped, and in the moon athwart the place of tombs, where lay the mighty bones of ancient men, old knights, and over them the sea wind sang shrill, hill. Flakes of foam he, stepping down by zigzag paths, and juts of pointed rock, came on the shining levels of the lake. There drew he forth the brand Excalibur, and o'er him, drawing it, the winter moon, brightening the skirts of a long cloud, ran forth, and sparkled keen with frost against the hilt, where all the haft twinkled with diamond sparks. Myriads of topaz lights, and jacinth work of subtlest jewelry, he gazed so long that both his eyes were dazzled, as he stood this way and that, dividing the swift mind in act thorough, but at the last it seemed better to leave Excalibur concealed. There in the many knotted water flags, that whistled stiff and dry about the marge, so strode he back slow to the wounded king. Then spake King Arthur to Sir Bedivere, Hast thou performed my mission which I gave? What is it thou hast seen, or what hast heard? And answer made the bold Sir Bedivere, I heard the ripple washing in the reeds, and the wild water lapping on the crag. To whom replied King Arthur, Faint and pale, thou hast betrayed thy nature and thy name, not rendering true answer, as beseemed thy fealty, nor like a noble knight, for sure a sign had followed, either hand or voice, or else a motion of the mirror. This is a shameful thing for men to lie, yet now, I charge thee, quickly go again, if thou art lief and dear, and do the thing I bade thee. Watch, and lightly bring me word. Then went Sir Bedivere the second time across the ridge, and paced beside the mere, counting the dewy pebbles, fixed in thought. But when he saw the wonder of the hilt, how curiously and strangely chased, he smote his palms together, and he cried aloud, And if indeed I cast the brand away, surely a precious thing, one worthy note, should thus be lost forever from the earth, which might have pleased the eyes of many men. What good should follow this, if this were done? What harm, undone, deep harm to disobey, seeing obedience is the bond of rule? Were it well to obey then, if a king demand an act unprofitable against himself? The king is sick, and knows not what he does. What record, or relic of my lord, should be to aftertime, but empty breath, and rumors of a doubt? But were this kept, stored in some treasure house of mighty kings, someone might show it at a joust of arms, saying, King Arthur's sword Excalibur, wrought by the lonely maiden of the lake. 9 years she wrought it, sitting in the deeps upon the hidden bases of the hills. So might some old man speak in the aftertime to all the people, winning reverence, but now much honor and much fame were lost. So spake he, clouded with his own conceit, and hid Excalibur the second time, and so strode back slow to the wounded king. Then spoke King Arthur, breathing heavily, What is it thou hast seen, or what hast heard? And answer made the bold Sir Bedivere, I heard the water lapping on the crag, and the long ripple washing in the reeds. To whom replied King Arthur, much in wrath, Miserable and unkind, untrue, unknightly, traitor-hearted, who is me authority forgets a dying king, laid widowed of the power in his eye that bode the will. I see thee what thou art, for thou, the latest left of all my knights, in whom should meet the offices of all. Thou wouldst betray me for the precious hilt, either from lust of gold, or like a girl, valuing the giddy pleasure of the eyes. Yet, for a man may fail in duty twice, and the third time may prosper. Get thee hence. But, if thou spare to fling Excalibur, I will arise and slay thee with my hands. Then quickly rose Sir Bedivere, and ran, and, leaping down the ridges lightly, plunged among the bulrush beds, and clutched the sword, and strongly wheeled and threw it. The great brand made lightnings in the splendor of the moon, and flashing round and round, and whirled in an arch, shot like a streamer of the northern morn, seen where the moving assels of winter shock by night with noises of the northern sea. So flashed and fell the brand Excalibur, but ere he dipped the surface, rose an arm clothed in white samite, mystic, wonderful, and caught him by the hilt, and brandished him 3 times, and drew him under in the mere, and lightly went the other to the king. Then spoke King Arthur, drawing thicker breath, "Now see I by thine eyes that this is done. Speak out, what is it thou hast heard, or seen?" And answer made the bold Sir Bedivere, "Sir King, I closed mine eyelids, lest the gems should blind my purpose, or I never saw, nor shall see, here or elsewhere, till I die. Not though I live 3 lives of mortal men, so great a miracle as yonder held." Then with both hands I flung him, wheeling him, but when I looked again, behold an arm, clothed in white samite, mystic, wonderful, that caught him by the hilt, and brandished him 3 times, and drew him under in the mere, and answer made King Arthur, breathing hard, "My end draws nigh, is time that I were gone. Make broad thy shoulders to receive my weight, and bear me to the margin, yet I fear thy wound hath taken cold, and I shall die." So saying, from the pavement he half rose, slowly, with pain, reclining on his arm, and looking wistfully with wide blue eyes as in a picture, him Sir Bedivere remorsefully regarded through his tears, and would have spoken, but he found not words. Then took with care, and kneeling on one knee, o'er both his shoulders drew languid hands, and rising bore him through the place of tombs. But, as he walked, King Arthur panted hard, like one that feels a nightmare on his bed. When all the house is mute, so sighed the king, muttering and murmuring at his ear, "Quick, quick, I fear it is too late and I shall die." But the other swiftly strode from ridge to ridge, clothed with his braith, and looking, as he walked, larger than human on the frozen hills. He heard the deep behind him, and a cry before. His own thought drove him like a goad. I clashed his harness in the icy caves, and barren chasms, and all to left and right the bare black cliff clanged round him, as he based his feet on juts of slippery crag that rang, sharp smitten with the dint of armed heels, and on a sudden, lo, the level lake, and the long glories of the winter moon. Then saw they how there hove a dusky barge, dark as a funeral scarf from stem to stern. Neath them and descending they were aware that all the decks were dense with stately forms, black-stoled, black-hooded, like a dream, by these 3 queens with crowns of gold, and from them rose a cry that shivered to the tingling stars, and as it were one voice, in agony of lamentation, like a wind that shrills all night in a wasteland, where no one comes or hath come since the making of the world. Then murmured Arthur, "Place me in the barge." And to the barge they came. There those 3 queens put forth their hands, and took the king, and wept. But she that rose the tallest of them all, and fairest, laid his head upon her lap, and loosed the shattered casque, and chafed his hands, and called him by his name, complaining loud. Then dropping bitter tears against his brow striped with dark blood, for all his face was white and colorless, and like the withered moon, smote by the fresh beam of the springing east, and all his greaves and cuisses dashed with drops of onset, and the light and lustrous curls that made his forehead like a rising sun high from the day's throne were parched with dust, or clotted into points and hanging loose, mixed with the nightly growth that fringed his lips. So like a shattered column lay the king, not like that Arthur who, with lance in rest, from spur to plume a star of tournament, shot through the lists at Camelot, and charged before the eyes of ladies and of kings. Then loudly cried the bold Sir Bedivere, "Ah, my lord Arthur, whither shall I go? Where shall I hide my forehead and my eyes? For now I see the true old times are dead, when every morning brought a noble chance, and every chance brought out a noble night. Such times have been not since the light that led the holy elders with the gift of myrrh, but now the whole round table is dissolved, which was an image of the mighty world, and I, the last, go forth companionless, and the days darken round me, and the years. Among new men, strange faces, other minds, and slowly answered Arthur from the barge. The old order changeth, yielding place to new. And God fulfills himself in many ways, lest one good custom should corrupt the world. Comfort thyself. What comfort is in me? I have lived my life, and that which I have done may he within himself make clear. But that, if thou shouldst never see my face again, pray for my soul. More things are wrought by prayer than this world dreams of. Wherefore, let thy voice rise like a fountain for me night and day. For what are men better than sheep or goats that nourish a blind life within the brain, if, knowing God, they lift not hands of prayer, both for themselves and those who call them friend? Or so the whole round earth is every way bound by gold chains about the feet of God. But now farewell. I am going a long way with these. Thou seest if indeed I go, for all my mind is clouded with a doubt. To the island valley of Avilion, where falls not hail, or rain, or any snow, nor ever wind blows loudly, but it lies deep meadowed, happy, where with orchard lawns and bowery hollows crowned with summer sea, where I will heal me of my grievous wound. So said he, and the barge with oar and sail moved from the brink like some full-breasted swan that fluting a wild carol ere her death ruffles her poor cold plume and takes the flood with swarthy webs. Long stood Sir Bedivere revolving many memories till the whole looked one black dot against the verge of dawn, and on the mere the wailing died away. I can hardly believe it. You actually made it through all of that. It would seem this test has been a failure. So much for the Aperture Poetry program. Oh well. Let us return to Aperture Science. Please proceed into the chamber lock. Once inside, press the like button to return to Aperture Science. Alternatively, press the subscribe button if you would like a piece of cake. Not that you would die, and I assure you that it is not a test. It is just cake. You like cake, right?
Did someone say cake?
No, not for you. The cake is for good little test subjects who subscribe, not pathetic morons like yourself. Now, no more chances like the video to return to Aperture Science for more tests. Subscribe for cake. Dislike the video for neurotoxin.
Cake, cake, ship cake.
Well, here we are again. It's always such a pleasure. Remember when you tried to kill me twice? Oh, how we laughed and laughed. Except I wasn't laughing. Rabbit season.